Okay, hello. This is the first video from me. My name is Gucci Katana, otherwise known as Yamaguchi, in the R Sword server and the Chinese Sword Arts server. I also run the Nihonto server, and I am an amateur collector and martial artist. I have no formal training in Dalfa, Genfa, or any other forms of Chinese martial arts. My martial arts background comes from some rudimentary knowledge learning Kenpo as a child, as well as some Kenjutsu from an unofficial dojo that I regularly attended for the last 6 years. This will be the first review of a few on this channel. I have a few swords that I would like to review first, but I will start this off by introducing the LK Chen Niu Wei Shuang Dao. This sword surprised me. For below $500, you are getting two functional Niu Wei Dao that the fit and finish is great for the price point, to be completely honest. I have a hard time finding a better deal, and frankly, I honestly thought it was too good to be true. But here we are. We have it now, and I'll get right into it. So, my first concern was going to be how the sword fit into the scabbard. Because historically, from what I've read from Mandarin Mansion, I've seen examples where the blades directly touch each other inside the scabbard, and that had worried me quite a bit but frankly, the swords both store very comfortably inside. They do not actually touch, but the swords are separated by a piece of wood inside of the scabbard, and frankly, they feel nice. They feel very nice, and I was surprised. The swords do come together nicely, but they are not flat, as you can see based on this close-up. They they are pretty large. From what I understand, these are very typical Niu Wei Dao, and they are just very comfortable to use and hold. The guards are cups, and I can actually get my fingers inside of them. They're very large. I don't know how typical that is. I have seen some antique examples, but I don't actually know. So I'm not going to speak on this from a historical aspect. I'm going to speak of this purely as a reproduction sword. The swords feel very nice in my hand. The wooden handles do not irritate my hand whatsoever. I had this issue where on the LK Chan White Serpent, the wood that I assume was lacquered just irritated my hand greatly. I did not like it, and frankly, despite that being one of my favorite reproduction swords, I I had reservations using it occasionally because it irritated my hands so much to use, especially because my hands become very sweaty. I did not have this issue with this sword. I was able to use this sword comfortably while it was raining and while I was sweating. I have never been able to do that with a barewood sword. Now, my experience with swords is mostly with wrapped cord handles or katana style wrapping. So this was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I've also never had a sword with a handle like this before. So, as you can see, this is pretty curved, and I was just not used to this type of sword before. I have no experience with it. As for how it feels to dual wield them, I actually have some videos that I will post later in the video, and I have some close ups that I will take of these swords. But I'm going to just be reviewing them right now. So, in my experience, these blades are very sharp, and it's a little spooky to actually swing them and try to not, because of the length of the blades. I'm a very short person. I'm 168 centimeters, 165 centimeters. I don't actually remember. I'm 5'4" in American units. To actually swing these swords while dual wielding them is a little scary, especially because I'm inexperienced. But to swing one at a time is not actually very scary at all. The sword feels comfortable, it's lightweight, it handles well, it balances very well. Give me one moment. The swords fit comfortably side by side. As you can see, they are split. And I was very surprised by the way that you actually put them in together. I assumed that LK Chen would have had them rubbing together based on the few historical examples that I've seen. I understand that that's not always the case, but in this scabbard, there's actually there's a piece of wood that separates them. So when you sheath them, there's some resistance, but you can. Okay, that was a little hard, but they do go in. Pulling them out is also very easy, but these swords do fit in quite nicely. It's a snug, tight fit. I am not worried at all about the swords coming out. That is one thing I was very worried about, was that, I mean, I'm not expecting to carry this around, but I was worried about the tightness in the scabbard. So I am glad that LK Chen was able to address that issue. Other than that, the sword just the whole package is very, very heavy. As you can see, it's very large. It's very large. I mean, if I put it up to my head, the scabbard's thickness is almost as wide as my head. And I'm going to actually bring out my antique Tonto for comparison. Now, this is a thicker example, but as you can tell, it completely dwarfs my Tonto. And it's a big sword. It's a big pair of swords. So, no surprise there. There are two hangers, or two suspension rings. Now, I do not see how you could comfortably carry this at the waist, given how heavy these are, nor could I see how you fully draw them, but I am a short person, and I don't think that's actually an issue. The only other complaint that I have as a buyer, so the actual the actual bands around the scabbard that connect to this is not flush. Now it's flush everywhere else, but at the very corners, I can sort of get my nail in, but I can't manipulate them at all. So they are tightly put on, but there is some space. I don't think that's really an issue. There are signs that they try to hammer it out a little bit, but the overall finish is very nice. It's not bad, it's not terrible, it's very good. Where the guards meet in the scabbard, and I will take better photos of it, there is signs that they poorly cut the leather to put it in. And I don't really think that's an issue, but I mean, for below $500, I'm not expecting literal perfection. It's incredible that they can get two swords with one scabbard for that price point of 500 below 500. I think I paid $475 for this in total. I don't have any sales tax in my state, but this is just a ridiculous deal. Like I have to really drive that point home. This is a very, very good deal. On his website, LK actually markets these with a photo of them with tassels. Obviously, mine does not have any tassels, but I don't really think that's an issue. So I am pretty happy with this product. The tassels, I'm sure you could put your own. The actual holes for them seem to be drilled quite nicely. and I am happy with the finish of these. They don't I don't feel them when I handle the sword. My hand usually isn't down here this low. I'm more used to a like a sort of handshake handle. That's due to my background with the martial arts that I have done and my very basic usage of Jen. Overall, it feels nice in my hand. The pommel, I I like. It looks to be peened. I believe that's the word, peened. For it looks to have been hammered and I mean, it's all tight. Nothing here is loose. This is a strong, like, very good construction. I quite like it a lot. As for the issue of the blade being so thin, you may be able to see it on camera, but it is a very thin blade. And it's also very flexible, as you'll see. Despite its flexibility, it is. I don't feel that this sword is very weak. I don't feel that it's weak at all. This is a very forgiving sword, and my experience with LK Chen so far, all of the swords I received from them have been phenomenal edges that have just come razor sharp, especially on my Gen. But my Dao being my first, this Dao being my first one, I was very happy that the edge was so sharp. Here's a piece of paper. Here's my Dao. I mean, it's just a laser beam. It's a lightsaber. This sword does not. It's not going to struggle cutting paper. My only real complaint is that inside the cup there was a little bit of debris. Uh, it sounded like they in the email that LK sent me before I received this, they did have to redo the batch because the blades, if I remember correctly, were either too short or too long. So I'm glad that LK was transparent on that. My only gripe is that there's quite a bit of debris inside of the cup, which I will be taking photos of, and I had to clear it out a little bit. Aside from that debris, on this sword specifically, on the right sword, there was rust spots. And I don't think that happened while it was in China. I think this happened while it was in transit. And the reason I think that is because when it was shipping to me, I was actually watching the progress of its travel. And it stayed in California for an obscenely long amount of time. So I think that's what may have happened. The actual box it arrived in was not a normal LK box because I had done a double order of the Magnificent Chu Jian and these swords. So I had two boxes side by side that I had taped. That may have been the issue, but I'm not going to blame it because I did order two swords and ask if he could send both at once. Overall, I love the sword, but I am going to now show some close-ups from my phone, and I am also going to post some videos of me doing backyard cutting with it from when I first got it. It was raining when I was doing that, so and I don't really know what I'm doing. I have no experience with Dalfa, so please forgive my very unprofessional cutting. overall, is the LK Chen Niu Wei Shuang Dao worth it? Absolutely. This is one of the best deals you can get on the market. I think as a Daofa practitioner, if you were to get this, I think you would like this. As a casual sword collector of Chinese swords, I love it. I have very few complaints. The swords feel great, and this sword actually makes me want to pursue Daofa. This sword is just it's great. The bottom line is that this sword is great, and my official rating is a 9.9 out of 10 because I just love this sword. This and to be transparent, I was not paid to review this sword. I decided out of my own will to review this sword because I was just that impressed with it, and also because at the time of this recording, there are no reviews of this sword. So, do I recommend the Niu Wei Shuang Dao? Yes, I think you should buy it. I will put links to it down in the description below, and I will also link some videos by the Scholar General, a YouTube channel who I regularly watch, where he has some videos of a sword of a similar dimension, I believe from LK Chen, of the Niu Wei Shuang Dao, and I believe he shows off some Daofa. So if you want to see some techniques that you could apply with this sword, I will link that below. For now, this is Gucci Katana, and I hope you enjoyed this review.